Welcome back to what we hope will be another fun-packed adventure and review of an old forgotten Nintendo gem. Today's episode is number 25 in our series, and it finds us examining the very rare Game & Watch Nintendo called Egg. But before we get into this episode's focus and star attraction, I'd like to firstly answer last episode's picture quiz question and brain teaser, that we on this channel like to call, What in the World? Here it is again, shown as it appeared at the end credits of our last episode. Do you know what Nintendo item is being shown to you here? It was, and still is, a personal favorite of mine, despite it being touted as a Nintendo failure. The sleek Wii U is a lovely games console that is highly underrated and one that I strongly believe will become a highly collectible gaming system in the coming years. Getting its release in the late fall of 2012, the Wii U was Nintendo's first HD graphics system. The gamepad was the primary controller and featured an underused, or at least underutilized touchscreen. However, heading back to the star of today's show, here's the beautiful Game & Watch called Egg. Issued on October 9 back in 1981, the game is rumored to have sold about 250,000 units. Known to most Game & Watch collectors is the fact that Nintendo issued two identical games on the same day, but branded them differently. The most popular was the licensed Mickey Mouse widescreen Game & Watch, which sold in excess of 1.2 million copies. The rarer and lesser-known twin was the Game & Watch Egg. Unconfirmed claims suggest it sold 250,000 copies, however the rarity of this game suggests that number is highly inflated. This game was presented with what is now the traditional high-quality gold faceplate, contrasting nicely against the four primary gameplay buttons. The housing is colored a deep majestic blue, which offers a much more mature and balanced combination than that of its identical sibling the Mickey Mouse Game & Watch variant, together with its bright red dazzling plastic housing. Given the product code of EG-26, the thinking here is that the EG part of that code clearly stands for the game's title, Egg. Shown here in the instructions booklet is the maintenance and correct insertion for the batteries to help prevent damage, also shown as an example of the original set of Maxwell's LR43s, which are highly sought after by collectors. The alarm setting and cancellations are covered in detail on this page of the instructions booklet, with a cockerel being the alarm sprite. When fresh batteries are inserted, the screen will display all sprites simultaneously, similar to what is shown here. However, when the unit is left in its rest mode, the display runs through a simulation of a gameplay visualization. Here we are introduced to the avatar, who is an unnamed wolf, who together with his floppy hat will attempt to catch all the eggs that are being laid by the hens. These eggs then roll down one of four chutes for the wolf to scoop up. With what we know so far, I think we should turn our attention to the first of the two game modes, Game Mode A. In Game Mode A we see that points are scored for every successfully caught egg, and that the wolf is rewarded with a single point. Notice also that there are four chutes or drops. Equally notice that in Game Mode A, only 3 are ever active. The next thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the speed of the eggs rolling down the chutes. It is very slow initially. Also notice that there are very few eggs, the quantity is very low. This changes as the gameplay advances and more points are scored. The quantity and speed that the eggs are laid will be slowed, temporarily as we pass the 100-point mark. This allows the player a small respite, however the tempo will quickly increase once again. Any dropped eggs will lose a life, or a half-life if the cockerel is visible. But any lost lives will be restored as the player passes both 200 and 500 points. Now moving on to the second game choice, Game Mode B. In Game Mode B we find the rules, gameplay and scoring is identical to Game Mode A. The only difference is that Game Mode B has all four chutes open, and eggs can be rolling down any one of the drops at any time. As an aside to gameplay for a second or two, the question or debate over why Nintendo launched two Game & Watches, with both being what is effectively the same gameplay, has been open to interpretation. I believed for many years it was a purely Australian-issued games unit, however evidence has shown that certain areas in Australia did actually receive the licensed Mickey Mouse version. So it's now pretty much accepted that only a few states in Australia and possibly some Asian destinations received the Game & Watch Egg. I think it is also universally accepted now that Great Britain and the United States of America categorically did not receive the Game & Watch Egg. Japan is also another location where sure never received this game's console. I personally think it highly likely that the Egg variant is an early production run in case Disney decided not to grant the license to Nintendo. It is not a fact, but seems as reasonable as any other reason to do with licensing issues around the world. The caution segment of the booklet is consistent with previous widescreen issued instructions, as is the screen maintenance and recommended viewing angles. The booklet finishes up with the prescribed specifications covering such items as battery life and operation tolerance parameters. And before we move on, let's take a few seconds to admire the game, box, styrofoam tray, batteries and instructions booklet one last time. Making that critical high score record was, back in the day, a very important part of overall gameplay. This is not an isolated example of a Sharpie being used, and while collectors might wail and gasp at this destruction, it is kinda cute in my opinion. It's kinda slim pickings when it comes to official Nintendo cameos for the Game & Watch Egg, however it did get a rerun when the Game Boy Color system launched the Game & Watch Gallery 3. As was the routine for these homage games, the designers offered about 5 Game & Watches per cart, and each option usually offered a classic and modern version of the game. Coupled to some hidden unlockables of other titles, these Game & Watch galleries were a much cherished addition to the Game Boy portfolio. Here we see Yoshi in the modern version, and he uses his tongue to capture cookies, while the classic reproduces the look of the actual Game & Watch. Well, that's really all I've got on the Game & Watch Egg. We've covered the Silver and Gold series, and we're in the home stretch on these widescreen Game & Watches. But we find ourselves once again at that juncture in our show where I need to ask our regular photograph quiz question. What in the world? Can you really identify this from what you can see here? Please feel free to have a guess in the comments section below, or join me in episode 26 to find out. That's it, folks. Thanks for watching, and I really hope you've enjoyed our little journey so far. It's going to be truly epic, I believe. So get the word out there, hit the like button and share our content. Remember to follow us too. Hopefully you know we're not only about Game & Watches, as beautiful as they are, but everything Nintendo. See you all real soon.